Good afternoon, everyone. We don't need that just yet. How are you doing this afternoon? Happy Thursday afternoon from the Creative Cottage. The heat wave has finally broken here, at least a little. I think it's going to be like 87 today, but it's been in the 90s, kind of miserable. But here we are, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, which means it is a creative communication. This is episode number 55 of Every Day is a Story All Its Own. I am storyteller and creative Joey Medea, and welcome. I don't know if this is perfect timing for this or if it's kind of overdue, but we just got back from the third leg of our Cyrus Avery Centennial Tour / our authors and artists tour. So I was at Road Fest for the third year in a row. So I have my Oklahoma Route 66 Association t-shirt on today. And I thought that I would share to you. I'm posting all the time about doing this man, Cyrus Avery, out of the world of Route 66, and in some ways out of the world of Tulsa, Oklahoma, Springfield, Missouri. People just don't know who Cyrus Avery is. The ironic thing is he was called the father of the Mother Road. And when I portray Cyrus, and I've done it 26 times and counting so far, I kind of speak on his behalf to say, it was all there in the trails, the traces. I think what I'm going to do is once the tour is over at the end of this year, celebrating the 100th anniversary, the centennial of Route 66, maybe I'll put on the Psy costume one last time and do an episode where he can talk to you directly about his involvement with Route 66. I'm almost positive I'll do that probably before Christmas. Maybe it'll be the last show of the year. Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Anyone who's watching on Facebook, I cannot comment live for you to see it. When I have a guest, I've started going directly to Facebook, but I can't multitask in that way. So we're going to spend about an hour together today. So I was saying, ironically, known as the father of the Mother Road, but this is called Cyrus Avery, father of Route 66, and so much more, because he really was. I'm quite enamored of this man. It was over 4 years ago, probably 4.5 years ago, that I first learned about him and almost immediately began studying his life. The gaps between us are very narrow. I portray him almost the same exact age that I am now. I think maybe he was a year younger or so. Community service, a deep commitment, not afraid to go to war, fight to the last ditch. As he said in one circumstance, he battled the KKK and suffered greatly for it. So today I have a slideshow prepared for you, and I'm going to take you through it, and you'll learn about this amazing man. So roll the opening, come back, load the slideshow, and we'll get going. Cyrus Avery, father of Route 66, and so much more. Welcome. All right. So Cyrus Avery, father of the Mother Road, and so much more. So I'm going to take you through his life now and his major accomplishments. Hopefully you will find him as fascinating as I do. If you do, a woman named Susan Croce Kelly has written a wonderful book, really the only book-length work about Cyrus. Also, have to give a shout out to Sheena, head of special collections and archives at Oklahoma State University, Tulsa. The archives there are indispensable if you really want to deep dive into Cyrus, and they're available digitally, although holding some of the telegrams and otherwise being in close proximity to some of the key correspondence to see his handwritten notes on things was invaluable as I was creating this character, because even though he didn't die until the early 60s, when he was 91 years old, there are no audio tapes and no visuals of him, no tape, no TV interviews or anything like that. So it's quite a challenge. So let's go. So this is Stevensville, Pennsylvania, just like it says on the photo. He was born there in 1871. It was a small farming community, fairly well-to-do, hardworking people who had been there for a long time in the Susquehanna Valley. His name was Cyrus Stevens Avery. Cyrus was the name of both of his grandfathers, paternal and maternal, which is very cool. His mother's ancestors founded the town of Stevensville, hence Cyrus Stevens Avery. His father, Alexander James Avery, was a ninth generation descendant of Christopher A.J. Avery, who came over to Massachusetts as a colonist in the early 1600s. So Cy's family was right there at the founding, the creation of the American colonies, what would become the United States of America. And I think he took that investment very, very seriously. John D. Rockefeller's wife also was an Avery. So two well-connected, long-time American families. Cy had ancestors who fought in the U.S. Civil War and the American Revolution. And Cy did his part during the wars, World War I and World War II in different ways, which I will talk about. So in 1893, his father loses everything. In the financial panic, this is a beautiful area here. Where Cy went with his father, and I'll get to that just in a minute. But what precipitated was the bank panic of 1873, the financial panic, which was triggered by Jay Gould. So Jay Gould was very, very big in the railroads, and he had an affinity for gold. He didn't want some of the gold, he wanted all of the gold. So in order to raise the capital to purchase as much gold as he could possibly get, he overvalued the railroads. A lot of what I do when I talk to young people, a lot of what I do as Cy, because Cy was so committed to money is not enough to grow a community, to do your part in service. You have to show up with time and effort. I think this comes back to his very hardworking father losing everything in this financial panic. So I got an opportunity. I was appearing as Cyrus, and I finished with the class, and they asked me to stay extra and talk about the Great Depression. And I think that Cy very much saw that these bank panics, these financial panics every 20 years or so. In 1929, in the Great Depression, he lost everything. He had been a millionaire. He lost his businesses. He lost all his money, practically had to not beg for a job, but rely on the kindness of people he knew just to pay the bills. So this had a huge impact on his life. So in 1884, Cy goes with his father to Veneta, which is in the Oklahoma or Indian Territory, in a Conestoga wagon. When I do the presentation for young people, which I've gotten to do 20 times, especially the little ones in elementary school, I take them through a visualization on this Conestoga wagon. That trip lasted 3.5 months through many states, Pennsylvania, into what would become West Virginia, Virginia at the time, into Missouri, down across major rivers, lots of challenges. Cy's two sisters and the mother did not go with him. Of course, it was too treacherous a journey. They were going, they weren't sure what they were going to find. They needed to create their farm. So it took a little over a year that they were separated from the family. And Cy was only 13 years old. So again, early things that made a huge impression on him. And as a Chautauquan, as building the story of someone in my historical novels, the same way, these early experiences that shape a philosophy, that shape a worldview are so crucial. Someday I might write about this 3.5 month journey that he and his father took. What did that look like? What was going through his mind? Anyway, they wind up in Veneta, beautiful here. The Spavinaw Creek, which also makes a huge impression on him. A wonderful, pure, clear drinking water. Cy works the farm. This develops a lifelong love of agriculture. So much in these 13 years, pivotal, building on what he did for the rest of his life. So in 1887, he's 16 years old, and he enrolls in County Teachers Institute in Noel, Missouri. In 1890, he graduates with the credentials to teach elementary school. That was wonderful to share with the elementary school teachers as I was doing my 2-week tour, 20 schools in Enid, Oklahoma, not on Route 66, but a town that Cy really, really loved. The fact that he was an elementary school teacher, and I think his public speaking skills, his way with people had a lot to do, again, with that early training. And so he teaches for 3 years. Now, in 1893, he enrolls at William Jewell Baptist College, and he gets what we would call a liberal arts education. He studies history, he studies literature, he studies science, he studies elocution. All of this figures into the great impact that he was able to make concerning the Good Roads movement, Route 66, and everything else he did in his life. He was an extremely popular speaker. Not only that, but anything he was ever involved in, a board, committee, as he said, he wound up running it. And it was because of this liberal arts communication and his great intelligence and his great commitment to good. So in 1897, he graduates with a bachelor's in liberal arts. He's 26 years old. That December, he marries Essie, the love of his life. They wind up being married for 60 years, and they wind up dying within 9 months of each other. Essie predeceases Cy, and then he goes, and as I recently said, as Cy at Roadfest doing a presentation as him, I believe that he died of a broken heart. So now he knows he can't make a living as a school teacher. He's got to do something greater. He's got to do something grander. It was interesting. He was supposed to go to a different college. He was on the train on his way to Columbia, Missouri, to the college there, and he met these two brothers. And they said to him, "You would really like our sister. You should come home and have dinner with us." And Cy scrapped everything to be close to Essie. Like I said, they got married in December. They had 3 children, which I'll get to, and were married for 60 years. One of Cy's, he liked to stand on the shoulders of giants, like I do. Quote from brilliant men. One of them from the early 1700s was Joseph Addison. And Cy said that Addison said, as he did, that there are 3 keys to happiness: someone to love, obviously that was Essie, and of course his 3 children, worthwhile work to do, and Cy always had an abundance of worthwhile work to do, Good Roads movement, entrepreneurial things, and his hobby farm. Which was actually quite large. He had 2 different farms, and I'll talk about that in a bit. So they decide, after they get married, to move to Oklahoma City. So this is eventually going to become, in 1907, the capital of Oklahoma, a very important place. Cy sells New York life insurance. He's very good at it. He winds up managing the office. And so, because he's so good, New York life is so well known that he starts to get in higher social circles. And this is going to figure into the rest of his life. So in 1904, they moved to Veneta. As a population of 2,000. So he returns to Veneta, where he first went with his dad when he was 13 years old. So it goes back to it. He's still doing insurance, but he's adding farm loans. He's getting into oil leases. Harry Sinclair, who goes on, if you know the green dinosaur, whenever I post a Sinclair service station, people have fond remembrances of the collectible toys. Someone just wrote to me on Facebook, and I'm not pulling it, but their motto. So people have fun recollections of Sinclair. Anyway, he and Cy found Avery Oil and Gas Company. Wade Phillips, the brother of Frank Phillips, who goes on to do Phillips 66, those chains that is still so well known, is a neighbor of his. So he's really starting to hobnob 3 years before Oklahoma becomes a state. So right around this time in 1904, the Glenpool oil field in Tulsa is the nation's largest oil field, continues to be, produces, well, in 1926, at the time that Route 66 is officially founded, there are 50 millionaires in Tulsa. And at that time, Cy is one of them, just barely. Can't compete with the Sinclairs and with the Phillipses as far as depth of pockets. Cy never went all in on gas production and distribution. He just had the oil leases. He liked to deal more in the leases, although he did have one oil well. Wealthy Tulsans, he is noticing, are working together to make the city the center for oil industry, and that becomes a huge part of his focus, and that lands him into the strategic places where he eventually becomes the father of Route 66. So in 1905, he's going to dabble. He likes this idea of the oil. So he leases 40 acres in the Tulsa Bird Creek field to drill for oil, and that does contribute at a certain level to his wealth. 1907, Cy finally visits the Tulsa oil fields. He is impressed. He is impressed with the fledgling town, and so he decides to move there. So in November, Oklahoma becomes the 46th state. The population of Tulsa is fairly considerable at this time in Oklahoma, 21,693. So let me just, I just want to show you this. I talk a lot about these millionaires, and of course I talked about Jay Gould. So there were millionaires who were for the public good, and there were millionaires that were very selfish. Now we have billionaires and a trillionaire that divide that line, and everyone has opinions about that, and Cy certainly would have opinions about these people today in this day and age. But this is underneath one of the Phillips buildings in Tulsa, which are absolutely gorgeous. They're Art Deco. They have features that were replicated from the molds, the actual molds of Italian architecture and churches and so on and so forth. But these are security doors in a tunnel underneath the building, because being a millionaire was dangerous. People would take pot shots at you. They would kidnap your family and hold them for ransom. So it was not by any means all fun and games. And when I went on an architectural tour of Tulsa and I saw this, it really made an impression on me. So I make sure to include it. So here we go. So a ferry between Tulsa and Red Fork. If you remember a couple months ago, very talented painter, visionary, and Route 66 entrepreneur Josh Stout was on the show. Josh and his family have rehabilitated the Red Fork district. So this is a ferry between Tulsa and the Red Fork area there, which is now part of the Route 66 alignment. I have one more here for you, and that's what Tulsa looked like. So this town of 21,000 people at the time, everybody's got to start somewhere. That's their main street. It's got the railroad running through it. It has everything that it needs. It's right on the Arkansas River, and that's going to play big time into not only the story of Route 66, but also Cy's story. So in 1907, he moves there just prior to statehood, and he buys 1,400 acres. He uses 300 of these acres for alfalfa, timothy, red clover, Kentucky bluegrass, Bermuda grass, and also raises cattle, hogs, and sheep. He never does it professionally. He's known as Farmer Cy to his friends, to the Chamber of Commerce, to the Rotary Club, who I've been able to see lots of documents, facsimiles of Rotary documents from the time, and Cy was always very prevalent. Everyone was always impressed with him. He had Percheron horses, absolutely beautiful, and built a modest craftsman style home. Cy was never, ever ostentatious. It was not in his nature to be so, and he never really had deep enough pockets, even at the height of his success, to be too ostentatious, and that was probably a good thing. Now, I mentioned red clover. So Cy, being part of the Good Roads movement, was also very, very keen on road beautification. So he carried red clover seeds in his pocket, and he would spread them in the medians and on the burns and on the banks and things like that to have this grow to beautify it. So let's go. We're moving right along here. At this time, at statehood, and now has his 1,400 acres in his own home and all that, he creates Togo Oil Company with partners in Veneta, Claremore, and Afton, all in Oklahoma now in the state. So he's thinking bigger. He's thinking bigger picture and continuing to make his moves. Part of making those moves is getting involved with what is called the Tulsa Commercial Club. Years later, it becomes the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce, and the signage is still there. I've done some really cool photo shoots down there, dressed in size suits. So Cy on the commercial club train, he gets on the train. This is where he's starting to promote. He's going to promote Tulsa. He's just moved there within a year. Now he's going out all over the country, riding this train to drum up interest in Tulsa. He's one of 100 Tulsa businessmen, and they visit 8 states, DC. They go up the East Coast, touting Tulsa as being one of America's key future cities. He's president of the Avery Roberts Investment Company. This guy, one of his sons, Gordon, I believe it was, said that he slept quickly. People are always asking me how I manage to do everything that I do, and I guess I sleep quickly because I get plenty of sleep. So that's how he did it. He's doing all of these different things here. So there he is. This is from about that time, and there's a beautiful building where the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce is to this day. So in 1911, now he becomes a member of the Commercial Club. So he's not just touting it, but now he has the wherewithal, he has the businesses, he has the standing, and he has the finances to become a member of the Commercial Club. In the next year, he becomes a member of the club's board of directors, a position that he holds until 1937. By that time, the Great Depression has totally ruined his finances, and he has to move on to other things. Other members were in oil. They were in aviation. There were hoteliers. They're the Mayo brothers. Had the Mayo Hotel, which is still there. So through this commercial club, later the Chamber of Commerce, Cy is working to bring the International Dry Farm Congress to Tulsa. He also starts to champion a pipeline from the Spavinaw Creek, which is 55 miles away in Veneta, where he and his father started when he was 13 years old. So it all connects very beautifully. Why do they have to do that if the Arkansas River is right there, basically splitting Tulsa proper from the Tulsa oil fields? Well, the Arkansas River is silty, salty. It is not drinkable. So when Cy floats this idea in 1911, they are relying, this town of 22, probably 25, maybe 28,000 people by that time, are relying on bottled water from up to 250 miles away. 50,000 5-gallon bottles of water a week. It is not sustainable. Cy is one of these visionary entrepreneurs where he is looking at growth. He's always looking at growth trajectories for himself, for his town, for his state, for his businesses, for the United States of America, for the good roads movement. And when he identifies an untenable, unsustainable situation, such as having to bring in 50,000 5-gallon bottles a week of water from 250 miles away, him knowing full well that if he does his job well, the population of Tulsa, the investment in Tulsa is going to explode, they need to do something. So he starts to float this idea. It takes a while, like any really big idea, to run this pipeline 55 miles, but he's going to stick with it, and we'll get back to it. So in 1913, he manages to wrest the International Dry Farm Congress from Oklahoma City. Cy is never shy about stepping in and going, you know what, I know these guys want this, or we know these guys do this, but frankly, we can do it better, and we are the people with whom it should reside. He's done that before, and I'll talk about that again in a little bit. He brings 20,000 people to Tulsa, almost the population when he first moved there in 1907. 20,000 people to Tulsa in mid-November. It's great for Tulsa. There's a photo of the Dry Farm, or rendering of the Dry Farm Congress. There's the medal for the delegates from the Dry Farm Congress. Well, what does this do? This encourages farmers to increase profits by being more scientific. Cy is a great champion of that. Again, his liberal arts education comes in, his gentleman farmer status comes in, and he becomes president of the Eastern Oklahoma Agricultural Association. Again, if he gets involved with something, 9.5 times out of 10, he winds up running it. He becomes a chief county commissioner, so now he's starting to get into politics, to have the power to work with other politicians to make his visions happen, and he serves 2 terms until 1916. And I think I have something about, yeah, there he is. Elect Cy, Tulsa County's original good roads man. So he's already getting involved in that, which I'll talk about. Democrat, he was always a Democrat for County Commission of District 3. There's a certificate of his nomination. Again, thank you to Sheena at the archives. I spend an amazing day there, and I've gone to the digital archives many times as I've continued to build and refine my programs. I'm just going to go into the hello to my brother Josh. Hey, hello from Tulsa. I was just talking about you, Josh. I hope you caught it. Thank you everyone for tuning in again. I apologize that I cannot type a response to all of you on Facebook, but it's just the world that we live in. So Cy, this is really important now. Another thing is there's this old rickety bridge across the Arkansas River. Now, Tulsa is not going to grow. Tulsa proper is not able to communicate, to stay connected the way it should with the fields of Tulsa and onward towards the west, right? We have Texas, so on and so forth, also big oil producing. So Cy's already thinking about this. He's already thinking about the bones through those old trails and traces and the start of now the highway associations and all those kinds of things. He really will need to talk to you all to fill in the pieces about that. This presentation that I'm doing today specifically does not talk much at all about Route 66 because Cy's presentation covered it. So it was built specifically to give the larger picture to audiences who are also going to see Cy's performance. So I will definitely do that in December of this year. That'll be fun. So they need a bridge. They need a bridge over the Arkansas River, a multi-span proper steel bridge. Now, folks with deep pockets, much deeper than Cy's, more connected than Cy, go to him and they go, yes, this bridge is a really, really good idea, Farmer Cy, Mr. Avery, but here's what we need you to do. See, we want to make it so that Negroes, as they were called at the time, African Americans and Blacks, as I will refer to them moving forward now for the rest of this presentation, they really should know how to read in order to vote. That's the way it should go. We want a literacy mandate, and we'll give you all the money you need for your bridge. We'll do that. All you need to do is back this Cy. You're a county commissioner. Everybody respects you. You're powerful in the commercial club. What do you say? Cy, of course, says no. If Cy would have said yes, I wouldn't be doing this presentation now, and I would have walked away from it, quite frankly, because that's a big no-no. But Cy is 180 degrees from that, as you will see. So he says no, and he finds the money elsewhere, and the bridge is eventually built within the next several years. 1915, the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce forms from the Commercial Club and the Tulsa Automobile Club. So now we have this business, automobiles, good roads movement, and Cy is the epicenter of all of it in Tulsa. So although he can't compete with the rest of the real millionaires, you know, the Scullys and the Mayos and the Phillips and the Sinclairs and on and on and on, all these very, very rich people in Tulsa. He's at the epicenter because he's got his foot in a lot of things and he's very good at what he does. So in 1960, lo and behold, Cy strikes oil on his Tulsa farm, and that sure does help him. There you go. And there's the gusher right there in 1916. So cool that the archives there in Oklahoma at the State University Tulsa campus has that photo. I mean, how cool is that? Very, very cool. So in 1918, Cy now has 2 teenage sons. He has Leighton and Gordon, and he has a 1-year-old daughter, Helen. There's, of course, Ellen when she's older. Again, Joseph Addison, someone to love. Cy was very devoted to his family. No one in his family, the ancestors now, any descendants rather, anyone that does interviews from the family, no one ever says a bad word about Cy. He was not an absentee father. He was not an absentee grandfather. He found the time. The man slept quickly. And that I greatly admire him for. So there he is with the family in different places. There you go. So during this time, too, he becomes director of federal relief in Northeast Oklahoma and heads the Tulsa County Liberty Loan War Bond Program. And he manages to raise just shy of $750,000 in 1918 in bonds to help support the war. That memory of his ancestors who fought in the Revolution, that fought in the Civil War, so on and so forth. So in 1919, there's the Liberty Loan poster. And those of you who are listening to this in 3 weeks on ERT Radio on Wednesday night at 10 p.m., please check out the video either on my Facebook page, on my LinkedIn, or on my YouTube so that you can see these photos. Woodrow Wilson is on this tour. He's lauding the League of Nations. He's going to come to Tulsa, and Cy is going to be part of the welcome committee. The thing is, Wilson, of course, gets sick. He has his stroke, and the whole thing gets canceled, so Cy never gets to meet him. But that's the caliber of Cy's standing, and that's why I include it here, because on this very, very important trip, Cy was chosen to be part of the welcome committee. He had to be, simply had to be. So by this time, he has struck oil. All of his businesses are very successful, and he feels like this good roads movement, really, really good things are coming. So in the early 1920s, he builds a gas station, a motor court, 25 one-room cabins, 12 by 16, so fairly nice, with a central bathhouse, and a cafe, an old English inn, which are going to come into play and cause him a little grief in a couple of years. So in 1920, he's the director of Security State Bank. If you know anything about banks, their directors are very well-to-do, very connected, very responsible people. And September 14th of 1920, although a bond has passed on a water commission to bring water from Spavinaw, so now this is 9 years since he originally floated the idea, the city charter does not allow it. It's a technicality. Does he give up? No. He fights all the harder. And 3 months later, the Tulsa charter is amended. The water commission is appointed. And it starts to move forward. So he was 13 years old when he first experienced the Spavinaw Creek. Now he's in his 30s. It's taken 9 years for his idea to get off the ground, but now it is in motion. So now we move to a chapter that really says, and here's that Spavinaw water line. Here's a letter about what was going on from the Commissioner of Waterworks and Sewage and the chairman of the Utility Board. They were asking Cy for things that he didn't feel like he needed to give them. So there's a handwritten note there. Well, I didn't do it. That is Mr. Avery. Stubborn sometimes to a fault. So we're going to get very serious now here for a minute here. And we're going to talk about what for a very, very long time was called the Tulsa Race Riot, now rightfully called the Tulsa Race Massacre. This is in the Greenwood district of Tulsa. It was known as Black Wall Street in 1921. Very, very successful, 35 blocks, over 1,200 homes, doctors, business people, entrepreneurs, lawyers, school teachers, you name it. The Booker T. Washington High School was there. Many respected churches. It was flourishing. And there were elements in Tulsa who had designs on these 35 blocks. They wanted to develop it for commercial and not with the African American population. So on May 31st, if you think about, if you know your history, let's talk about the Romans. Every empire, including until today, operates on what they call pretexts. They have designs on something, and behind the scenes they create the conditions, and or in this case they are quick to capitalize on something that happens naturally, so to speak, and quickly move on it as an excuse to push into motion what they want to do. So on May 31st of 1921, 19-year-old Dick Rowland, a football hero from Booker T. Washington High School. I believe he was a fullback who's now shining shoes. He steps into a building downtown Tulsa, supposedly to use the bathroom. Seems reasonable. He accidentally falls or steps on the foot of 17-year-old white elevator operator Sarah Page, who screams and panics. And someone overhears and thinks she's being assaulted. It was totally an accident, and she wound up not even pressing charges. She screamed as a involuntary reflex, panicked, but Rowland is brought in for questioning, and then he's released. However, the next day, May 31st, in the Tulsa Tribune, which leaned in a certain anti-African American way, let's say, the headline was "Nab Negro for Assault." There, that word is again, and I apologize. Rowland brought to jail for his protection. That's what the police say. A mixed mob shows up armed outside the courthouse. Blacks come to free Rowland, they're worried about his safety. Whites come because they're angry because of this Nab Negro for assault. So now it's on the cover of the newspaper, the headline of the newspaper. Everyone's angry and upset on both sides. Into June 1st of 1921, the Tulsa Race Massacre takes place in Greenwood, Black Wall Street. If you know the show Lovecraft Country, which uses the horror works of H.P. Lovecraft, similar to the way that Jordan Peele uses traditional classic horror motifs as a commentary on racism in the United States. They do, towards the end of that one season that they had of the show, they do tackle this, and they tackle it fairly accurately in a lot of ways, actually. Over the course of this day, 1,256 homes, businesses are looted, many burned to the ground, 300 people are dead. Surgeon is murdered in his own front yard, even though he raises his arms up in the air, standing in the front yard, and says, "Here I am, take me." He's shot 3 times, twice in the chest, and later dies. There's $4 million in losses. This is over $60 million in today's money, and there's a photo of the town burning and the aftermath. The police commissioner was involved. The police captain was in on it. There's a book called Tulsa 1921. It's very good to read. Carlos Moreno, a friend of mine, he wrote Victory in Greenwood, another book that you really should read. Mostly based on newspaper articles, firsthand accounts. There are some conflicting things. It is almost certain that turpentine balls were dropped from planes, and that's why so many buildings burned. They were made out of wood. During all of that, while all of that is going on, ironically, Cy is appointed to the military commission. So another accolade, another PowerPoint, another way to say that his standing is substantial in the town. So Cy, very much, I told you, I would have walked away if he traded. I would have had no interest in portraying this man if he had traded support for a literacy mandate, which is still something they're trying to do in America, ridiculous though it is, because it's done for nefarious reasons, and we know that, and we don't have to lay on it. So excuse me. Anyway, Cy assists the victims, many of which are his clients. He had indigenous clients. He had African-American clients. A client was a client, someone to help because he valued, again, Addison, someone to love, something worthwhile, work to do is the second one. The third is something to hope for. He was helping people have something to hope for. He had so much to hope for all the time. He had very valuable work to do, and he wanted to see other people doing that as well. So through the Chamber of Commerce, now he worked with the Red Cross to set up camps. He sat on the Board of Public Welfare, or actually the Public Welfare Board. He supported reparations, not reparations the way they're talking about reparations today with regard to slavery. Reparations in the sense of 1,256 homes and businesses were looted and burned during this massacre. Buildings were set on fire. There were $4 million of losses, and Tulsa should help to pay for it. So he starts raising money for that. He raises $26,000, as a matter of fact. But the powers that be, remember the pretext, they want to turn this into a commercial district near the railroad tracks. They want to put up warehouses, so on and so forth, and all cash out, which means they need to get rid of the people who are there. It did not work out. The pushback was so great. Voices like Cy's were so loud, but the mayor would not stand for it, did not support reparations, and so the Public Welfare Board was forced to resign, and Cy presented the check for $26,000 to the Red Cross. Now, Greenwood is alive and thriving today. This is just a couple of, I had so many great pictures to show you, 5, 6, 7. I've made several trips there. I'm working on a project that will have I'm submitting the proposal tomorrow, as a matter of fact, to celebrate Greenwood, tied in with the Green Book, the Negro Motorist Handbook, and published by Victor Green. And I've done presentations on that before, and I probably should do another one again on this show just with that. I'm trying to do Route 66 next week. I'm going to do, while I'm thinking of it, next week I'm going to do my favorite places on Route 66, or Tanya and I's, neon signs, restaurants, giants, iconic things, entrepreneurial places. So I'm going to share that next week with you. That's another presentation that I do when we're on tour. Anyway, that's the story with that. But there was a limitation, a size limitation on my slideshow, so I had to take some of those out. Anyhow, here we go. So Cy now, through the midst of all this, replaces Oilman Earl W. Sinclair on the Tulsa Water Commission. Cy also donates land. Now, this isn't the end. So here's his Water Commission checks for $1 a year. That's what he got paid, and he, of course, didn't even bother to cash them. And here he donates land to help with all of this, which comes back to bite him in the butt, because they say that he benefited. Well, I will tell you, and I'm going to try to not be, Tanya will probably know what I'm talking about here. I was witness to someone who had a bunch of land, and suddenly something was built on it, and that person made a lot of money. This is not what was going on with Cy. He did not benefit monetarily from the Spavinaw pipeline, and, as I said, and it says right there, parkland to city. So donated parkland, donated land for the pipeline, and he'll donate some more of his 1,400 acres later on, which I'll talk about. So an after effector in the midst of this. Why does this happen in Tulsa? Why does it happen in the Greenwood district? Why do all these powerful people, from the police commissioner, so on and so forth, the mayor, all fall in line? Well, at the time, Tulsa has a very, very large contingent of KKK Kluxers, as Cy wrote about them when it really came back to get him some years from now. Anyway, the KKK is consolidating their Oklahoma power at all levels of government. In Oklahoma City, the state capital, there are 2,500 members. In Tulsa, there are 2,000. Now, I mentioned Enid is about an hour west of Tulsa, a little more, somewhere between an hour and a half, actually, I think. Enid turned out the Freemasons from a building because they had a big KKK population. So this isn't blanket, but Oklahoma in its early years, the first couple decades, first 3 decades or so, really struggles with this high presence of KKK. And I'm going to talk about that a little because, again, it directly affects Cy. So Cy now gets on the wrong side of the Tulsa Tribune. Remember, the Tulsa Tribune was the one who put the headline, "Nab Negro for Assault." So now he's under fire from these folks. They're accusing him of selling tracts of land for the Spavinaw pipeline at big profits, which was proven false. This was simply punishment from the KKK for him opposing them. Tulsa votes 3-1 for the Spavinaw bonds, which he is still heavily supporting. That also tells you that this is a legitimate thing here. This is the biggest per capita bond initiative in U.S. history, okay, to get this done. Cy, through all this, like I said, donates land for a city park. Here, this, and I think I have notes on it so I can get it right here. This is Beno Hall, B-E-N-O. The KKK builds this in 1923. It is a $200,000 building in 1923 dollars. It dominated downtown Tulsa, and there, you can see it with its iconography and all of that. So this was a very, very serious problem. Well, while they're doing this, while they're planning this, and I think it's sat 2,000 or 3,000 people, 2,000 members, and then, their friends and family and all. In November 1922, anti-Klansman and former Oklahoma City Mayor John C. Walton is elected Democrat governor of Oklahoma. He's backed heavily by Cy. He's a good roads man, but he's also, like I say, he's virulently anti-Kluxer, and Cy really likes that. Through his career, he had to be very careful. Yes, he's a commissioner. He's doing lots and lots of things, though. So he says, a good idea, I'll cross the aisle. I'm a Democrat. I'm a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat, but I will work with Republicans to get things done. And he tries to stay apolitical, but it's well known that he backs Walton. Well, this is going to get him, because Walton, whether he is doing this out of ego as his own pretext to get in office, or he just really is so much of a zealot, and it's probably some of all three. We all know that that's how that works. Walton calls for the removal of Tulsa city and county officials backed by the Klan. He suspends habeas corpus. But this is the time, this is embarrassing for Cy, because this is also time of the International Petroleum Exposition and Congress that the city is hosting. And Walton is cleaning house in Tulsa while all of these people are coming in, thousands upon thousands of people. It's not a good look. Today, we would say this is terrible optics. So Walton goes on to place the Okmulgee County, just south of Tulsa. He places it under martial law. It continues to deteriorate from here, and Cy is caught in the middle of it as a business person, bringing in the Petroleum Congress as a backer of Walton. This is really going badly for him. The Oklahoma City grand jury convenes to investigate Walton's actions. He puts the entire state under martial law. He sends the National Guard with machine guns to seal the courthouse doors, and legislators are turned away at bayonet point. We have seen some crazy stuff in 2025, 2026. We have not seen this, and knock on, glass. My desk is glass. Knock on wood, my old noggin. We have not seen this level, but this is what is going on. The Oklahoma legislature passes an anti-mask bill, again, through all of this craziness, to curb Klan violence. So you think about, there's an organization here in America, a government organization, quasi-paramilitary organization that is back in the news again. 2 murders recently in Texas and Maine. These guys go around masked. Here it is, 1923 in Oklahoma, a big KKK presence, and the Oklahoma legislature passes an anti-mask bill to curb Klan violence. Maybe we should have some anti-mask bills. It's impossible to talk about Cy without getting political. Cy would want me to. That's who he was, and he lost an awful lot because of it. Now the newspapers are writing against him. They're saying that he's a schemer. He's trying to make all this money, and all they're doing is tarnishing his reputation. They're trying to get him out of power. They're trying to destroy the man. October 23rd of that same year, 1923, the Oklahoma House adopts 22 articles of impeachment against Walton. They suspend him from office, and November 19th, Walton is convicted on 11 of the 22 articles. Lieutenant Governor Martin Trapp, also anti-Klan, but much saner. Some people in Oklahoma that I know, more than a few, will say that Trapp was the state's best governor in history. He replaces Walton. This, again, and this is Route 66, but just very quickly, because I know I've been going for 48 minutes already, and I still got a ways to go. Cy gets at the forefront of Route 66 and gets to sit on federal boards and really be involved in highway numbering and all because of what Trapp does, instituting a gas tax on gas tanks, I guess you could say, or what goes in gas tanks, but institutes this gas tax, which allows Oklahoma to have a highway commission. And for having a state highway commission, they can now get federal funds and they can send a representative to be involved. So that becomes very, very important. And it's a whole very fascinating. And for a historical education specialist and all around history geek like me, you can see why I love this man and love this history so much. So November 1st, the Spavinaw water pipeline is completed. So there's Walton on the left, there's Trapp on the right. Looks a good-looking, honest man. The rise and fall of Governor Jack Walton. You definitely want to check that out, all you history geeks out there. Just a wild, wild thing. But he's going to be topped by another guy named Johnson on the far side of Trapp. And I'll mention that briefly because Cy really ran afoul there. So here we go. So the Spavinaw line is completed. And it took, from Cy's idea, it took 12 years to do it. So Cy was a stick to your guns and see it through kind of guy. So again, November 17th of 1923, the Chamber of Commerce says that President Coolidge pressed a button in D.C., this is very cool, to turn on the flow, which was followed by Governor Trapp filling a gold cup with water from Spavinaw Creek. It took 1.2 million in bonds. As I say, one of the biggest bonds U.S. history at the time, or was at the time. Cy is again the target of acrimony. He gets his pipeline. It works out great. Everybody is thrilled. President Coolidge is involved in the turning on ceremonies. The governor is, but Cy is still being targeted by pro-KKK factions and others who are just plain jealous of him. So in 1925, Cy builds a golf course near the city park, which his son Leighton runs for a time. July 7th of the year, the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce calls for a public apology to the Water Commission, of course, on which Cy sat, on which guys like Harry Sinclair sat, and a vote of thanks to them. So that was well deserved. So 1926. This is all going on now because Trapp institutes the gas tank. Cy and the Oklahoma Highway Commission are accused of misappropriating funds. It's just been created and already they're being accused of misappropriating funds. Route 66, when they work all of this out, where does it run? It runs right past his inn, his motel, his gas station. Look, folks, he believed deeply in Route 66. He said is the direct, it is the fastest, it is the most scenic route, it will get the business. And he doubled down. Now, I said Route 60, you'll have to watch in December. If you haven't seen my presentation and don't know anything or very little about Route 66, how it went from 60 to 66. Whoa, that is a heck of a story. It's my favorite segment during my presentations. And when I can only do a short segment, that's the one that I choose because it's just amazing. So 1927, now Route 66 has been officially created. He's helped co-found with John Woodruff in Springfield, Missouri, the Highway 66 Association. He becomes the first member, the first vice president. Political and business decisions by 1927 are beginning to haunt him. He's jobless. Why? In February, okay, so November, Route 66 is born. The father of Route 66 is fired from the Oklahoma Commission, the Highway Commission. The new governor, because of a smear campaign led by this Democratic attorney and politician, Henry S. Johnson, so Democratic infighting, He's a prohibitionist, but he's a supporter and maybe a member of the Klan, a la Rasputin. He has this weird secretary, Mrs. O, who has an uncle who's reading the tarot, throwing the bones, and kind of running the state, funny but not funny. Most probably a member of the Klan, I'll say that. He's elected governor. Now, Trapp, on a technicality, was told that he could not serve further as a governor, even though he's very beloved. Everybody was so convinced that Trapp was going to go on the Democrats that nobody wanted to throw in their hat against him. But Johnston, with the backing of the Klan and with a lot of ambition, jumped right in and basically scooped it up unopposed, and it was terrible. It was terrible for the state. Late in January, the Highway Commission is disbanded. Cy says, the Kluxers threw us out on our head. We went the way of the Wang Doodle. I have a message that he wrote to a friend about this. Just simply stunning that 3 months after Route 66 was founded, in large part because of Cy, he's out. He's out of a job. A friend, a general, has to get him a job with the WPA just so he can pay the bills. Johnson was in again with the KKK, heavy asphalt companies, all of a piece. They want this guy out. Business and politics and racism coming together quite disgustingly. So Johnson is making a mess of it. The state legislature calls a special session to vote on impeachment. Johnson calls on the OK National Guard. Sound familiar? Harkens back to Walton. He invokes the courts. He's locked out of the Capitol. The legislators impeach Johnson from the Huckins Hotel. So the legislators, he to keep them from going into session and impeaching them, he locks the doors of the Capitol. So they go over to the Huckins Hotel across the street, and they impeach Johnson from there. But the Oklahoma Supreme Court and the Oklahoma City District Court rule this unconstitutional because technically Congress is not in session because they're not in the Capitol building. And the impeachment, unfortunately, is later dropped. So what's going on with this all here through the time to finish us out? And there he is. There's Johnston. And then there is Cy is just going on. He's going on. The International Petroleum Exhibition comes back to Tulsa. Also, the Charles Lindbergh flies his modified Ryan M2, the Spirit of St. Louis, to McIntyre Airport, which is a private airport. Tulsa does not have a municipal airport, even though they're hosting that July the Ford Reliability Tour, a barnstorming competition for 10,000 people, 14 famous barnstormers, including Charles Lindbergh. And Lindbergh says to Cy, look, Cy, Tulsa's supposed to be a going concern. You're hosting all these things. You're very important. Now you got Route 66 going smack dab through it. Why? Because mostly of you and that bridge that you had built and your vision, Cy, and you don't even have a public airport. Cy goes, okay, Lucky Lindy, his nickname. Okay, Lucky, I'll see what I can do. So he is going to address everybody that night on the roof of the Mayo Hotel at a big reception event. And he announces that in 1 year, without telling anybody, without telling Scully, Sinclair, Phillips, none of them, that they are going to have the airport in a year. And guess what? He donates some land. He fronts some money to get it going. The Sinclairs, Scully, so on and so forth, they all front money, about double to 2.5 times what Cy can afford. He's got very little now. He's taking a total punishing because he's out because of his backing of the KKK. So anyway, the Aviation Committee is formed to get this done. Cy has undeveloped real estate there. Okay, he's going to donate the land. Of course, he's going to come under fire again. So just as he promised to the astonished faces of everyone on the roof of the Mayo Hotel that night, and maybe even Lucky Lindy, 1928, the Tulsa Airport Corporation was founded, which was made up of Cy and the many other Tulsa millionaires who underwrite the purchase 405 acres, and the Ford Reliability Tour lands the next summer at that Airport. There you go. We're still flying out of it. They just their international terminal just had a big upgrade. It's a wonderful airport. Don't mind flying in and out of there at all. So in 1929, let's see what we got here. There's the International Petroleum Exposition. There's Cy at that time. That is the look that I base Cy on when I play him from this time, 26, 27. There's the Powder Puff Derby. There's the Ford Reliability Tour. So the Powder Puff Derby, that's the ladies up there flying, people like Amelia Earhart, sorry. Going a little too fast here. Women's air race named by Will Rogers. So the Powder Puff Derby named by Will Rogers. There you go. Not too many people know that fact. So there you go. So let's finish this out here as we go. Thank you all for sticking around or watching it after the fact, as I know many, many of you do. But in 1929, the legislature votes on 13 articles of impeachment, finally, for this Johnson. They've had it. 6-week trial while the governor is suspended from office. The Oklahoma Senate convicts Johnson of general incompetence, and he is removed. The following year, in 1930, $650,000 of bonds are approved for the airport, and underwriters turn over the airport to the park board. All the debts were paid by July 1931. All of that complication to say to you that it ran smooth in large part because of Cy, and there certainly were no improprieties. Now, in 1931, he delivers the keynote for the 21-county, 200-person gathering about the farm situation. So, gentleman Cy, farmer Cy, still has his hands in farming. When an old farmer during a dry spell is asked if it will ever rain, he says it always has. And Cy says that will not get the job done. We cannot wait for the rain to come. We got to make the rain, so to speak. Also, you don't miss the water till the wells run dry. And so he's right on top of it. In 1933, he's elected president of the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce. He's highly, highly involved with the Rotary and the Masons. I wear my Rotary pin on my suit for Cy. We share that in common. And he's also publishing monographs published by the Tulsa Chamber of Commerce on grasses. Again, sleep quickly if you want to keep up with a man like Cyrus Avery. In 1934, he runs for governor with 10 other Democrats. Cy's already starting to fall off now. He got less than 3,000 votes. During to just after the Great Depression, Avery and Sons real estate is dissolved. He is no longer a millionaire by 1934. The Depression is taking a toll, and all of these attacks, the periods of joblessness, losing his job from Governor Johnson. So in 1935, this general gets him appointed as WPA director for the 13-county 1st District in East Oklahoma. The general, for those of you who are playing history bingo at home, is General William Key. The nomination is not supported by Governor Marland because of Cy's reputation and wanting to block him. The newspapers misrepresent his tenure, accusing him of personally benefiting from worker and land use. They accuse him of personally benefiting from worker and land use despite the fact that he put 18,000 people to work on $6 million worth of projects. So what happens? He's forced out. The governor didn't want him. He had to call in a favor from a powerful friend, even though he created 18,000 jobs on $6 million worth of projects. He was forced out. So in 1940, he buys 100 acres of land west of Tulsa, at the Lucky Ranch, which he calls it. So he never gives up, maybe an homage to his now famous friend, Charles Lucky Lindbergh. He raises cattle and he studies grasses. In December of 43, he loses his son, Gordon, who at the time was married with 2 sons, to pneumonia. In 1944, he runs for his 3rd term as Tulsa County Commissioner, and he loses. I think I skipped maybe a couple of slides here. Well, there you go. The Avery booms the grasslands. Congratulations on his appointment to the WPA. So that's those there. 1944, runs for 3rd term as Tulsa County Commissioner and loses. He can't even get a political position now on the county level, even though he was a 2-time former commissioner. So in 1949, he's now into his 70s. He negotiates for a second water pipeline. And he suggests that the company, to make it easier, build a plant in Tulsa. Now, this is near Sand Springs for those who know the area. He then joins the construction firm, which is called Lock Joint, as their Oklahoma sales manager, and he spends 8 years doing that. In 1950, he takes that job. Of course, it's pushed back. Look, old Cyrus Avery benefiting from his deals again. Sure, he's helping us, but he's really helping him. That's what's important to him. He doesn't retire until he's 87 years old. God willing, and the Spavinaw Creek don't rise. Maybe he and I will have that in common as well. In 1957, and this is his picture I have here, Avery visits an old friend. On his 85th birthday, he goes up to Veneta and he drinks from the Spavinaw Creek after rolling up his pants and wading in up to his calves. And in 1963, he dies at 91 years old, having worked, of course, until he was 87. When he retired, he and Essie moved out to Los Angeles, where Helen was living. Essie died, like I said, I believe 6 months or 9 months before him. They had been married for 60 years. So there you go. Just really quickly, there's a couple things, a couple of shout outs that I really want to give. It was an amazing time at Roadfest. I got to present twice. One of the times with Jim Hinckley. A nice newspaper article was written on that. Thank you to Bill Wynn at La Semana for doing a nice article about our presentation. Jim did Murder and Mayhem, and I did Supernatural 66, which continues to be very positive. I want to show you this photo, which was presented to me on that Sunday. This is my new friend, Gary Dietering, and that is his 1965 Chevy Impala. He won Best in Class for that. Right next to it, you can see there, the black vehicle there is a 1963 Chevy Impala, which is his daughter's. Amazing vehicles. I absolutely love the Chevy Impala. It's right up there with the 1957 Chevy Bel Air to me. And you know how much I love the 67 Chevy Impala because of the show Supernatural, and I use a 67 Chevy Impala in my iconography and my banners and all for Supernatural 66. I also want to give a shout out really quick to Ed Vogel and his wife. We took photographs, really Cy was the attraction, with the 1926 Hupmobile that they own, fully restored, that they've been driving the length of Route 66. Can you imagine? So if you see this beautiful dark green 1926 Hupmobile, it's got some centennial iconography on it. That's Ed Fogel and his wife. I was very honored to do that. Also took a picture with Amy and Boyce with their 1949 Vagabond that Boyce fully restored. It's amazing, all the woodwork and the tile work and the and everything. It's absolutely beautiful. He took it down to the frame and redid it. It's amazing, gorgeous. You can go to my Facebook, and if you search down, you can find pictures of some of these things. And also want to give a shout out to Ken from Ken's Route 66 Adventures. A heck of a nice guy, a Route 66 enthusiast, passionate, everything that I've come to learn and expect. And Ken is going to be on the show August 27th to talk about his YouTube channel, which you can look at. You don't have to wait. Called Ken's Route 66 Adventures. So there you go. Thank you for staying with me a little longer than an hour. I don't usually go an hour with the Creative Communications. Next week may take an hour again, but I'm going to give you a great slideshow with Neon That We Love, Giants, eateries, cool entrepreneurial establishments. People really kind of love this. Again, I have a lot of passion for it, so I will bring that. The week after, I have a film producer who just put out a book, an investor's handbook. If you want to get involved in investing in films, you're definitely going to want to check that out. That's actually, I believe, the first Thursday in August. Prior to that, I'm going to do a list of books that I think are absolutely crucial if you really want to understand how the film industry works. So from there, we'll just see how it goes. Tanya and I are continuing the authors and artist tour. Thanks everybody who checked in live. Thanks everybody who's after the fact, everybody who's listening on in 3 weeks. I really appreciate the support. I love doing this program. Every day is a story. The second edition of the book is still doing well. Next week, I'll be able to show you. I'll be holding the book in my hand. Copies of it are arriving tomorrow. So thank you all and have a great day, and I'll see you next week.